so the trick we're trying to perform is, you get innovation when you've got somebody in a completely different field that looks at a business problem and says, well, I don't know jack about this, I guess, but have you thought about this? And it turns out to be a completely new idea. Or where two ideas that are apparently unrelated rub off each other and someone says, but those are kind of the same thing, right? So what we're trying to do with this Think Place, at least, we're a very virtual distributed workforce, so we have to use this kind of technology. You can do it in a room like this, it'll be better, but what we're trying to do is to create a forum where people really can say, I want to spend a few minutes in here, give some thought to a business problem or a client problem that we're trying to solve for our client, and learn enough about it that I can contribute something, right? And maybe that bubbles up and it becomes an interesting issue, maybe it doesn't, but we want to create the forum for doing so, and we're 85% on that one. Now, all of this stuff then, I'm sure you've seen this kind of concept before, but it really works pretty well for us. This means that this pyramid of content says that at a local tier, we let people do pretty much whatever they want to. You've got space on the web, so, we provide you space on the portal, we let you tee up your own communities, we offer a terrific amount of autonomy and very little administrative interference with people who want to share knowledge one way or the other in communities and so forth, at the local level. Now, as you go up that pyramid, so somewhere there's a big difference between doing, having a project, a team database for a project that we're doing on the web, and contributing something to the front page of the portal that we attribute to the CEO. Right? That gets scrutiny, right? But the point is that a lot of places where we go, where we see the same sort of programs, same kind of technologies involved, they're not working because either it's just so administratively complex to get it done that it discourages people, right? Or that somebody has reared their ugly head and said, this is a big security problem because you're letting people... So we have all the same issues. We'll apply some security stuff where it belongs, but not at these lower tiers, right? So the way we get people to self-organize, as Rob says, is we don't put a lot of barriers at that local level. Corporate journalism is a tough topic. I mean, yes, sir.
I'm sorry, if you could go back just to that pyramid.
Let's see if we can. Yes.
Because I thought you were heading somewhere concerning the relative management oversight of COPs at various levels, and it seemed that you're saying that Tier 1 is the Wild West. It's right. Whatever they want to do.
Right.
But were you going to say what is what's going on in Tier 2, 3, and 4? I mean, is there mentoring? Is there community of practice, protocol and rules,
right,
and rigor? And
yes. Great question.
Finish the story of that chapter.
Okay, we'll finish the story. So I'll give you an example. I'm involved in a couple of new things that we're doing, right? And so I have a lot of material that sits out there on the web and it's at this local tier, right? Okay. Something we should be very concerned about is that a lot of that is crap, right? A lot of that is half-formed thinking, it's not ready for prime time in any way, right? And so a challenge that we have, and people say, well, you let people do all this databasing stuff, and if you give everybody their little chunk, how do you know it's any good, right? I mean, don't you want to get to the point where someone can say, this is our top tier, fully vetted, best of breed, intellectual capital on this topic, and we do, right? But what happens then is, for instance, Rob and I are working on a couple of stuff that we want to submit to the national level of our practice. That will go through some vetting. Part of the role that our communities play is to say, well, I know enough about that to know that that's not fully formed, or we should see a more completed product, right? Once we get up, so as it progresses from that national level to a global level, we're weeding out the wheat, we're weeding the wheat from the chaff, right? So part of the role that this pyramid plays is as we migrate content, intellectual capital, knowledge from the local level to the global level, we're applying some pretty rigid, I wouldn't call them standards, but we're applying some rigor around panel-based communities that are experts in that topic, saying this is something we should surface at the highest level of organization. Right?
Who sits in judgment of the data integrity, fidelity?
Right.
I mean, who sits and says, this is crap, and oh, this is wonderful knowledge.
It's a lot like
level 2.
It's a process very akin to peer review, right? So if you think of it, certainly in consulting practice, we're able to determine who our leading practitioners are in a variety of ways, right? So they're more senior, they've been around longer, they've been involved in thought leadership, right? So people like that, right?
Okay, so somebody is regulating those communities
Yes.
of tier 1.
Right.
There's a corporate top-down that says
Yeah.
you may establish a tier 2 or tier 3 community, and to be in a tier 3, you've got to be a subject matter expert, professor emeritus from University of Maryland or
Whatever the IBM equivalent is, sure. Yeah.
Bell Labs or
Right.
something.
Right.
They have a tier 3.
And again, back to consequences, right? When we get to review time, then someone says, well, did you contribute anything by way of intellectual capital? People say, well, of course I did. And then we'll say, well, at what level, right? And so if your stuff has been through effectively peer review and wound up at a global level, good for you. But not a lot makes it, right? But we do it that way so that you know if you're dealing with something that's best of breed or something which is perfectly part of a perfectly valid process, but we're not saying should be consumed and put in front of a client, right? Right.